time is 3:02 p.m. and I call this meeting of the Godly Independent School District Board of Trustees to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. At this time, we will move into the public participation portion of the meeting. At this time, we extend the opportunity for the public participation portion of this meeting in compliance with Section 551.007 of the Texas Government Code. We have one person signed up to address the board. Public participation provides the general public the opportunity to address the board regarding topics listed on the agenda. Persons attending the meeting and wishing to participate in the public forum must complete the sign-up form and submit the form to the board secretary or designee 10 minutes prior to the meeting being convened. Each individual addressing the board will have 3 minutes to make their presentation. Personal attacks on district employees or students will not be allowed. All participants are expected to speak with respect and civility and maintain a calm professional demeanor. Ms. Goodlow will keep your 3 minutes. And Nova Olson, your time will begin now.
Where are you supposed to
speak right there.
stand?
You can speak right there. We do training here all the time. We can hear you. Great.
Okay. I stand here today wondering what is going on within this district. This administration spends time and money, who knows how much, to create and deliver letters to citizens who dare take issue with the way important matters are addressed. However, there are serious questions about whether the children of this district are safe. Imagine a woman in this district daring to not shake the hand of a male elected official and then having the audacity to question this male elected official about why budget documents were not provided to taxpayers. What a crime that a woman with agency would dare not shake a man's hand and then compound her crime by asking questions. Now imagine a boy or girl in this district who is being bullied or worse, beat up severely. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So I wonder, given the evidence, what kind of agency do they have in this kind of a district? Board trustee. Interesting that trust is literally written into your title. I remind you, board trustees, you have a legal and moral obligation to keep these little ones safe. Safe from any and all kinds of predators and abusers of all kinds, whether they be within or without.
Thank you. Next, we will move into our board training, Team of 8 training.
You guys take it away.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be with you in Godly, Texas today on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. Got a little windy as we were coming in, but it's good to be with you. My name is Doug Williams. I am the retired superintendent at Sunnyvale ISD. I was with Sunnyvale for 16 years, a total of 36 in education, and retired July 1st. And I am currently do a lot of board training. Seems like I'm going to more board meetings now than I was when I was active in the superintendency. But it is good to be with y'all. So, Kevin,
Yep.
I'll introduce this guy, and then he's going to take you through a little bit of an activity. So when I started getting ready to retire, I thought, what's retirement going to look like on the other side? And so one of the things that I really wanted to do is I really wanted to make sure that I stayed active, engaged with school districts. And so I called Kevin, who's with me today, and 2 other superintendents, one who is retired and one who is nearing the end of a long career. And we actually formed a company, and the company is Impact Education Specialists. There's 4 of us. Pretty much the thing that we enjoy doing more than anything is just hanging out with each other. You're talking to 4 guys that were longtime friends and worked together on various projects, and we just thought it was natural for us to continue to work in some capacity. We've done 2 board searches. We've actually completed one. We're involved in a 2nd board search. Hopefully we've got a couple others that we'll be interviewing for next week. What'd I say? Board searches. Superintendent searches. And then we do board trainings. We've done quite a few board trainings, and and more than anything, again, just getting out, continuing to help school districts. I want to introduce my colleague, my partner, Kevin Worthy. Kevin is soon to be the retired superintendent in Royce City, and he's going to tell a little bit more about himself. I will say this, that Sunnyvale and Royce City had the opportunity geographically, we're about 25 miles apart, but we've spent a lot of time, really, I guess, probably the last 10 or 12 years just collaborating. So much so that we actually refer to ourselves as either Sunny City or Roycevale. And so just working together. But we've also had the opportunity to work with Godly some in the past through getting to know Rich through the Future Ready Superintendent Network, and then also a group that we call TPAC. And we're going to look a little bit today at the work of TPAC and how that's really driven some conversations here. So this time I'll introduce Kevin Worthy.
Yep, I'm Kevin Worthy. Again, thank you for allowing us to be here and be a part of this training. This is my second time to be in Godly. The first time was back in 2009 when I was superintendent at Gunner ISD, and we played football against Godly, and I think we lost that particular day. And so this is my second time, and I'm just amazed at the growth and the vision of this incredible facility and everything that you guys have accomplished. Kudos to you guys. I am 31 years in public ed, and I retire in almost 10 days. December 11th is a little bit under 10 days. December 11th will be my final day in the district. I'm going to help the district along with some transition for their new superintendent and some things that they're looking for. But I've been superintendent of Royce City for 12 years. I came in 2012. Greatest district I have ever been a part of. It is just a tremendous culture that we've been able to establish, and we are a fast growth school district. We grow about 1,100 students a year, and so we are tremendous fast growth, and we build schools every single year, multiple schools. And so we've been fortunate enough to pass 3 bonds, 2018, 2021, and our latest one in 2023, $863 million. And so we've done some great work there. We're proud of it, but I'm ready to move on to the next chapter and do some important work across the state of Texas. And I'll be doing some consulting with some architectural firms and also working for our group with board training and board searches. So again, it's awesome to be here today. We appreciate the opportunity. That's a little bit about us, and so we want to get to know you.
Hey, before you go on, Kevin, one reason I thought that Doug and Kevin would be so relevant with us is because they've both been in fast growth districts.
Yeah.
Kevin's about 5 or 10 years ahead of us.
Yeah.
But Doug didn't tell you this, when they hired him, they had just passed the bond. Sunnyvale was a K-8. They had just passed the bond to build the high school, and Sunnyvale's about our size now. So, Doug's where we are now, Kevin's where we're going to be.
Yeah.
So we'll have a lot of relevant.
Yeah. When I got to Royce City in 2012, we were 4,200 students, and we're approaching 9,000 now. So just under 12 years, we've seen a tremendous amount of growth, and it comes with headaches. I mean, it's definitely some challenges when we have those opportunities to do some incredible things, but you're definitely cramped for space and some of those things that create those challenges. So
And one of the, and I think one of the things that Kevin and I had talked a lot about is maintaining the identity of your school district. You know, when I got to Sunnyvale, there were 570 students, 60 employees. And so I knew every employee, and I knew every employee's children. And so now that we have 2,300 students and around 300 employees, and again, small numbers compared to Royce, but it's different. And so, but we have intentionally tried to maintain the culture of, we say we are 4 campuses, but we are 1 school. And that's kind of been our vision. We want to make sure that, that again, it's a very much a student-centered place.
Rich, tell them about how often you guys redistrict.
we rezone every year, and so we open an elementary school every year. And so one of the things we're going through right now is a difficult rezoning, and I don't think you've ever had an easy rezoning. That's what I tell our team and our board as well. Anytime you think it's going to be easy, it's not. And so it's so difficult for kids to have to leave their campuses and go to a new campus or to even change campuses to go to an existing campus. But we try to do that try to be very tell us your name, your family, your occupation, how many years you've lived in Godly, and how many years you have served on the board. And so we'll start here.
Hi, I'm Krista Heiner. I have a husband, Jeremy, who we've been married a little over 24 years. He's a firefighter in Mesquite, so kind of y'all's side of the road or
Yeah.
world. And then I work full time for a large group of OB-GYN doctors in Fort Worth. I'm a sonographer, and so I do sonograms on pregnant women and non-pregnant women all day, every day. Help those doctors do a good job. I have lived in Godly since 2000, and so it's been 24 years, right? No, 23 years. And I have been on the board since May of 2019. Is that right?
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Sir?
I'm the godfather. Dennis McFarland.
Mm-hmm.
My wife, Debbie, we live here. We've been here since 1986. She was the tennis coach here for 24 years. And my son stole her to another district to coach her granddaughter. I've been on the board since '03. I've been in the restaurant business 50 years, and that's what I still do is run restaurants. So it's been a lot of changes. I've seen a lot of things happen, and I got neighbors. I never had neighbors before. I've got a lot of neighbors, so it's been a joy to be on the board. Joy serving.
Yeah, thank you.
We both left out some really important people in our family. I have 3 children. 2 have recently graduated from Godly, and 1 that's still a sophomore. And you need to mention your children too.
I have 4 kids. One's the AD in Keene, and with 2 grandkids
Awesome.
that I get to watch her play against Godly sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't wear this always. I have a daughter that's a therapist who's everybody graduated from here, and she has 2 more grandkids. And then I have a son that's just moved in with us, him and his wife, and they're having a baby. So when they said they're having a baby, I said, you can live with us. And then,
The Godfather way.
who am I missing? I'm missing another girl who stayed in the restaurant business. The only one that stayed in the restaurant business, and she runs Dirk Nowinski. She works in the airport with some different restaurants.
Very cool.
So,
Awesome.
so I'm very excited about the culinary piece in the restaurant, and
I bet
it's
you
got
are.
me all ears perked up about how we might be able to help support that in the near future.
Creating those pipelines, absolutely. So, thanks for reminding to talk about your children.
But and they're all Godly. His graduated from Godly, and 2 out of my 3 have so far. So
Awesome.
that's an important piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Hi, Kayla Lane. I am a stay-at-home mom, a homeschooling mother, and I also am very involved politically in both the city, at the state level, and obviously in the school district.
Right.
I've lived in Godly almost 5 years. I have served on the board since May of this year, and I have 3 children. I have an 11-year-old special needs son, I have a 9-year-old daughter, and then I have an 8-month-old daughter.
She's here.
Yeah, she just said
And she is here.
Her words in.
I usually travel with her.
Well, good afternoon. I met both of you a minute ago. Craig Stevenson.
Yeah.
Got a wife that we've lived here in the district for 20 years, owned property longer than that. 2 kids that both have gone through the school and graduated. Both of them still live here in Godly. New grandkid, just here 2 months old, so I expect him to go to Godly somewhere down the road.
Congratulations.
And I've been on the board for 13 years now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I forgot to mention, I'm sorry.
No.
My kids did go to Godly. We came here when my son was in 1st grade and my daughter was in kindergarten.
Yes.
And due to some reading challenges for my special needs son,
Yes.
I've been homeschooling them, but
Understand.
they were in Godly.
Awesome.
Matt McKittrick, I think my family goes back to, parts of my family go back to, when dirt was created around here. No, I have a wife, we've been married for 24 years-ish. Our daughter graduated from here, she's about to finish up Texas A&M. So, yeah, there you go. I've been on the board for, well, May will be 15 years. It's felt like 15 minutes underwater. I'm joking. Last 7 or 8 years, I guess. May will be 8 years as board president. I got to learn from Terry for 7 years before that. That was awesome. So, yeah, it's been unique. I've learned a lot of things and getting to work around a lot of good people. And obviously we've, again, not grown to the extent that y'all have, but just seeing the growth that this town has grown, it's amazing. I mean, it's just, my daughter's, I think we figured out the 6th generation of our family to go through some form of godly school. So, going back to the old prairie schools and that kind of stuff that, we're kind of trying to tie back in with the naming of some of our schools now. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, been good.
A lot of pride there. So your daughter graduates from A&M
Yes, sir. In May.
in May? What's her degree in?
Political science.
Okay.
She's applying to law school, so.
Okay,
So that's
good
her,
deal.
that's her dream.
My daughter graduated from A&M in 22,
Awesome.
marketing degree.
Krista has a son there, and Marissa has a son that just graduated.
We've had my wife graduated there too. She's an engineer for TI, and so we've had season tickets for about 10 years.
Yeah,
And so
that's
we do every football game.
That's
So,
what we.
Yeah,
we
you
love it.
can't disturb him from, if there's a home game from Thursday at lunch until like Saturday, Sunday at lunch.
I'm there.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm there for sure, yeah.
It's an event.
It
Every
is.
weekend. It's an event, no doubt.
Yeah,
So,
we're out in Aggie RV Park, so,
okay.
yeah.
That's exactly where we were.
Yeah.
We actually moved this, we need to talk.
Yeah.
I was at the Aggie RV Park for 9 years almost.
Awesome.
Yeah, so,
Perfect time.
yeah, we need to talk. We won't derail this meeting, but, Rich, go ahead, we'll let you do it too.
So I've been here for 18 years, came here as the high school principal down there, the last 12 as superintendent. I've got a wife, Julie Anders, she currently works at Cook's. 2 kids, 8th grader and 4th grader go here. And I think they've gone here since kindergarten or pre-K, so they've been here the whole time as well.
That's awesome.
Yes, sir.
Terry Goodlow.
Mhm.
I'm new to Godly. I've been here since '84. Started my school board service with Dennis McFarland, so I guess I'm the godmother. You're the godfather.
Yeah.
In 2003. Have 2 kids that both graduated from Godly and went on. My daughter is a missionary in Guatemala. She was a nursing degree, but now is a teacher, following the educational background. My parents were teachers. And my son just graduated from TCU. He played baseball there for 4 years.
Okay.
So, been here a long time. Love the community. My husband was a dairyman. He's retired from that now. And agriculture was important in the day here. One of probably the top 3 dairy counties in the state at one time when we were in the business. But since then, farms have sold, people have moved, and
Right,
now we're seeing the growth.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. What year did your son graduate from TCU?
He just graduated in December last
Okay.
year,
Okay.
like this time last year.
So played baseball there, so.
Yeah.
So you
He
tried
was under Schlossnagle.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I you know I was leading to that.
Yes, he was recruited by Schlossnagle.
Yeah.
And then, he actually played 5 different positions, started in 5 different positions, the only person to start at 5 different positions for TCU during his tenure
That's
there.
awesome. I bet you're so proud.
Yes, very. Followed many
Mhm.
games. He played summer ball in Alaska one summer, and we got to visit there. And he played summer ball in Minnesota,
Wow.
which I got to visit there as well. So it was an incredible journey, and he's hung up the cleats in the back, much to my husband's
That's what that was my
sadness.
next question. Not hopping around the minor leagues right now, huh?
No, as a matter of fact, it's funny, they have an annual purple white game, and so the loser of that series caddies golf for the
Yeah.
winners.
3 years this year. I am a part-time admin assistant and full-time volunteer, is what I always say. I've lived in Godley my entire life, so for 44, almost 45 years. And I've been on the board since 2014.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, relationships matter, and so that's why we do that, because there's always an opportunity to create a connection. And so as we were going through that exercise, there were a number of connections that we made, and that's important to us. And so we just don't want to be someone that's going to come in and do training and walk out. We want you to feel comfortable about it. We want to build that relationship with you, and that is really important to us. That culture is important to us. So again, we appreciate you doing that. So what are our objectives today? And so really, when we look at today's objectives, we're going to focus on about 5 different areas. And one is just really what are best practices? What are some best practices out there that make up a team of 8? Board members working with superintendent working with boards. And so really kind of talking about what that best practice will look like. We're also going to dive into a little bit of powers and duties. What are the powers and duties of the board members as well as the superintendent? We're going to dive into communication, the importance of communication. Sometimes it's one way, sometimes it's 2 way, and so we're going to talk about that. But really what we're excited about is really diving into your district accomplishments. We think that is extremely important, and we also think that's important as a collective group that we're involved in storytelling. And we think storytelling in public ed is extremely important, and the best way to tell the story is for you to understand and really can articulate those accomplishments that are happening every single day in your district. They happen every single day. At the high school, they happen every period. And so there are so many stories, so many positive stories that are out there that it's important for us as board members and superintendents to tell those stories. So we want to dive into those district accomplishments. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to really dive into goal discussion. What are some goals of the board members? What are some goals for your district? And how does it relate to these pillars that you see around the room? And so that's really what today's activity is going to be, around 2 hours. And so we'll try to get you out here around 5, a little bit after. And so we want to really dive into some of the work and really kind of talk about some of those accomplishments as well. And so I'm going to turn it over to Doug, and he's going to walk us through.
Yeah, so I want to spend just a few minutes. I want to talk about some training requirements, kind of why we're here. I think that's important. You can kind of see the main training that all boards are required to go through. There is, if you're a new board member, you have to have some sort of local district orientation. Can be conducted by the superintendent, by the board president, but that really is just a little bit of the basic procedures, operating procedures, things like that of the board. The open meeting training has to also be conducted in the first 90 days. That's just elements of what a good board meeting is all about, an open meeting requirement. Orientation to the Texas Education Code, again, within the first 120 days. Normally that's done by maybe your service center, TASB, a group like that. The team building. The team building is an annual requirement. The team building has to be by all 8 of the members, and that's what we're accomplishing today. To me, the team building is a very important element in a successful board. This gives you the opportunity to come together and really set a vision for what the next year and possibly even beyond can look like for your district. And so the way we do Team of 8 is a little different. You're not going to see us standing in front of you doing a whole lot of work from a slide deck. We are going to have to do some of that to get through some of the basics and some of the policy and some things like that. But really, we want the second half of this to be, as Kevin said, we want to take a look at where Godley is as a school district, and then give you an opportunity to really talk about what's important to you as a board member, and then as a collective team of 8 to set a path for where you are going forward. You know, you spend a lot of your time talking about, I'm sure you do because you're a fast growth district in Sunnyvale. we spent most of our time in over 16 years, we were either planning a new building, we were building it, or we were moving into it. And as we were moving into it, we were talking about the next one. And I think you have been in that mode. But if we just focus on that, if we don't focus on what goes on in those buildings, then we want to make sure that we have those discussions. And so we're going to spend some time with that today. Indulge me for maybe the next 20 or 30 minutes, and we'll kind of get through the sit and get, and then we're going to really dive into that. And I think you're going to enjoy the process. The additional continuing ed hours, for new members, you need 10 hours. For you experienced, you need 5, whether it's done through SLI or through maybe the TASB conference or something like that. And I think you understand that, right? Texas Education Code, I wanted to look at this. We always start our training with this look. An independent school district is governed by a board of trustees who, as a body corporate, and this is direct from the Education Code, shall oversee the management of the district. And so the key there is the 2 words that's bolded. That's the body corporate. Together as a 7 board members, when you come together, that's when you have the authority to oversee the management of the district. And so that's an important concept. Wanted to show you that, and then also where it's cited. That's in TEC 11.051. Separation of powers. So prior to becoming a school administrator, like many in the profession, I was a teacher's coach. In fact, so much so that I was a head football coach at Winsboro. Winsboro is predominantly known for girls basketball. Had a pretty good football team this year, coached by a young man who I coached 20 plus years ago.
Had no influence on
what?
Had no influence on that good season, I promise.
No influence, but he was gritty because of Coach Williams, I'll say that. But we had, you know, when I was there, I was the government teacher as well, and I love teaching government, bringing up political science, where I think Kayla talked about her work in politics. Rich will tell you that I spent a lot of time in Austin over the last few years. You know, that is my sweet spot. My contribution to area superintendency really was being an advocate for school districts and for kids in our school districts. And so as a government teacher, when we talked about the Constitution, one of the things that I feel like is so important in American government is the concept of separation of powers. And so we told them 3 branches of government, okay? Judicial branch, all right, they're the ones that interpret the law. They interpret the Constitution. The legislative branch, they're the ones that make the laws, pass the policy, and then the executive branch. And I told them that each 3 of those had their own responsibilities, but they were separate from the others. When we talk about school boards and we talk about school governance, there is that separation of powers. So if you think about the legislative branch, it's almost similar in form to what the school board is, okay? You're the ones that, again, make the policies and you adopt the budgets and things like that. Whereas the chief executive, or in the role of governor, president, whatever, the chief executive is the one that does the day-to-day operation of that. So the board of trustees shall govern and oversee the management of the district. The superintendent is the chief administrative officer. I use the term chief executive officer, but the same general thing exists regardless of title. And then a distinction has to be made between the roles and responsibilities. They have to be separate and apart between the board members and the superintendent. So we're going to do an activity in a few minutes. We're going to talk about what the duties of a board member are and give you an opportunity to share a little bit regarding that.
Okay, perfect segue into that. And so we're going to do 2 activities. And the first one, you can just do it on your PowerPoint presentation that you have in front of you. So on that particular slide, there's a notes section next to your PowerPoint. And so I just encourage you to take about 3 to 4 minutes and just write down, think about, as a board member, and some of you have been board members for a very, very long time. And so I want you to think about, as a board member, what is my duty? What are my duties as a board member? And just write that down, and we're going to popcorn and talk about those in just a second.
Yeah, that's the number one.
Number one.
You know, if we were playing Family Feud, that'd be the number one answer.
Yeah, that would be it. That would be
50
it.
points.
That'd be it, yeah.
50
That's the
points.
fast round when
Yeah.
you're standing up there, you know.
100 points, right?
Top,
100?
top 5 answers are on the board, so
That's why
absolutely.
she's godmother.
You know, we ought to,
Yeah.
we ought to turn that into a game. We should.
Yeah.
We should do that.
And I had a feeling that that's why I picked on you a little bit. So who else wants to share? We just popcorn, just whatever
Hey,
comes to
the
mind.
quicker you talk, the quicker we'll go
Yeah.
home.
I'll
So,
talk.
yeah.
Approve the
There you go.
budget.
Okay,
Mine was set a tax rate.
tax rate,
Mhm.
budget, yep.
Approve the
Oh,
budget, absolutely.
Set the goals and the priorities for the district.
That's right, exactly.
Adopt policies that are in the best interest of all children.
Okay,
Amen. Yep,
I also have advocate.
I have
It's
that
further
too.
down on the list, but
Mhm.
advocate for public school, education, students.
absolutely.
The other one I put was monitor progress.
I have that one
You
too.
gotta have a plan, a goal, but you gotta see how you're progressing.
Yeah,
okay.
could fall in strategic planning,
Mhm.
quarterly reports from strategic plan, that's monitoring progress.
Mhm.
Okay, very good.
What, Dennis?
An advocate for public education.
Okay, we've heard Kayla?
I put some additional to what they said, to be available to parents and taxpayers for them to voice their concerns and ideas, and use those, and also think about students when making decisions and voting on items.
Tell me what it looks like when, what do you think a good response to those parent comments, those suggestions, what does that look like?
If I don't know the answer to them, then I can point them to the right person for them to go to, whether that be a principal or an admin or the superintendent.
Very good.
Perfect, nailed
Yeah.
it, perfect.
And then there are certain questions, and a lot of questions that I can answer as well.
Yeah.
But just really being available.
You know, I think sometimes, and again, working with a board for 16 years, especially a new board member, there's so much that goes into school business, right? That when you're brand new, you know, sometimes you don't know, but it's kind of like anything else. It's all right to say, well, I don't know, but let me check with. And I think that's a great answer, especially when you've got a 12-year superintendent. And so I think that's a good response.
Yeah.
Someone else, another duty.
Did we get them all?
What about you?
My job is to execute these goals, and communicate with them and gather feedback from them and oversee the system, because my job isn't to do a lot of this stuff. My job is to make sure it's getting done, to make sure we are attaining these goals and measuring them and evaluating them. I think that's
Absolutely.
You know, the goals and objectives and the measures. The goals, objectives, and measures. And I think that is so huge. And I'm gonna take a couple minutes liberty here to kind of expand on that a little bit. I was about 4 years into the superintendency, and you know, it seemed like that we had a strategic plan. We had a strategic plan, but that sat right behind my desk, and it was a pretty cool place that I think I kept a picture on. And it wasn't a working document. And then we started doing what we call goals and priorities. I think goals and priorities. The best thing that my board president and I ever did the first day of staff development, teachers came back, first thing was, he sat on one side of the screen and I sat on the other, on a stool, on the stage in front of the 250 employees that we had at the time. And we said, here are the board goals and priorities, and here are the things that you're doing on the campus to address those. The teachers came up to us after and they said, we've never seen that. This is great. And so I guess when Rich says communicate, I think sometimes we just make the assumption that our staff knows, but they don't know other than the fact what goes on in that classroom. And so when we talk about communication, we're gonna talk about, I'm kind of, bearing the lead a little bit on the next slide, but we're gonna talk about how we communicate to our faculty and staff is vital, because we want them to know the big picture. Why? Because when someone from the community, when they see them at the store, when they see them at church, they're going to say, they're gonna ask them a question, and the best advocates we have, other than y'all, are our teachers. They really are. So to me, I think that's a key piece.
Absolutely.
Anybody else? Anything else you wanna share? We promised them we'd be out of here
Yeah.
pretty quick,
Yeah.
and so now they're wanting us to go, so.
So kind of leads us to the next question, and one of your duties could be one of your top goals. It could be one of your top goals, or it could be different. And so I want you to think about, you ask your question, what is my top goal as a board member? And what we want to do on this is we want to record this on one of the sticky notes, okay? So I want you to think about your top goal as a board member. What is your top goal as a board member when it comes to Godly ISD?
And the reason we ask this question is Kevin and I and Rich, but again, I guess over the last 12 years or 10 or 12 years that we've worked so closely together, probably haven't gone a week without talking to him, just in some capacity, either phone call, text, whatever. But we always talk about our why. Why do we do what we do? And, my why drove me to the office for 36 years. And by the way, continues to drive me. I'm in Godly, Texas on a Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock, and the Eagles and the 49ers are playing. But it's the why. It's the why. Why? Because the name of our company is Impact Education Specialist. We believe that we want to continue to impact education. That's our why. When we got together, what do we want to do? We want to continue to impact education. So the question that we ask you is, that top goal, does it help you identify your why? Why in the world have you served on the board since 2003? You've got to be a reason, okay? So think about it for a minute and write it on the sticky. And then when you're finished, right behind Kayla, there's a piece of chart paper, and I don't know why I drew a line on that one. I just started drawing the line.
So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and so just put it anywhere on that. What is your goal as a board member? Okay?
Great example.
You started off, you just wanted to go. You know when that changed for me? I may tell this story. I think I will. You can't travel with me without hearing a story or two, can you? When you're finished, you can go ahead and post.
Not in the hole.
All right, so you've piqued my interest here. You're spending that much time in the Metroplex, and you obviously have some rooting interest in one of these two teams of sports. Which one?
We're Cowboy fans.
Cowboy fans.
So we love
Okay,
it.
yeah, we want what's best for the Cowboys, and normally that revolves around what's worse for Philadelphia. Yeah.
Who's in
I mean,
front of the
good.
Cowboys?
Yeah, we got to deal with San Francisco eventually, but it's all about the Eagles. Yeah, okay, yeah. Good, we're
And
aligned.
I'm just gonna say, we do have a big screen TV. We have internet access.
In fact, we can put the PowerPoint here and
Little bubble.
Or if you wanted to put it on the big screen out there.
Yeah.
Hey, oh, yeah.
Dual purpose.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What's funny with us, is we spent, during the Rangers playoff run, if we had to talk business, it invariably just kind of wove its way back to whatever game they were in, so. You know, we talk about the why, and then we wanna hear from you. So, we were talking, was kind of having a side conversation, I said, why'd you go into education? He said, win the rings.
I
Me.
was just kidding.
And he was kidding, but coaches were that way.
Yeah.
I don't, and you heard this story. I was a counselor at a church camp in the summer of 1986, and small church. I was interim youth pastor, for lack of a better term. Went with First Baptist Commerce, and there was an older coach. He was 3 or 4 years older than I was. He was a young coach, and I got to know him that week. That's the week I decided to coach and teach. You know who that guy was?
Blake Cooper.
Blake Cooper, one of our partners. We've been around each other that long, and of course, my daughter, my sister, who Krista knows, I think she met 2 or 3 boys from Commerce. We had to chase out of the house eventually, but that was always my why. I went in because I felt like I could help make an impact on kids' lives, right? But at one point, I think sometimes it got maybe a little too much about that, so much so that one Friday, I heard my daughter tell my wife, man, I really hope we win this weekend, or win the night, so we'll have a good weekend. And I thought, I might have gotten a little too intense on the
Yeah.
W's and L's at that point. All right, let's Marissa, I want to start with you. I want to know, what's your one goal?
So my goal was rather broad, but I said to represent the stakeholders to the best of my ability and remain focused on mine and their truths.
Okay, truths. Tell me about
Yeah,
truths.
Truths to me are convictions, things that you feel very passionate about.
Okay.
Doesn't necessarily mean it's the correct and only way, it's just your passionate truth.
Okay, very good.
Well said.
All right.
Thank you.
How about it, Terry?
To advocate for public education and Godly ISD.
Okay.
I come from a family of teachers. I call myself the black sheep because I'm the only one that's not in the education profession,
Yeah.
although I feel like
Oh, you
I
are.
have the education at
You
heart.
are. There's no question.
So this is my contribution to education, even though I'm not in the classroom, not teaching, but the ability to be able to advocate.
What does advocate look like?
Hmm?
What does it look like? What are some elements of being an advocate?
Going out there and telling people how great our school is.
Okay.
And that we are educating kids the right way.
Yeah.
And we're giving them the tools to go out and be successful in life.
That's very good.
Very well said.
That's very good. All right, Matt?
I think, having grown up here and gone to school here, I have firsthand experience of what Godly ISD can and does offer, has offered in the past. And we can all pull out certainly negatives and things that, that definitely need to be improved on, but at the end of the day, it's a great place to live and grow up. So, my goal, I think, like Marissa says, is probably pretty broad, but just to leave it a better place than both when I went to school, not to say it was bad, but, when I went to school here and then certainly when I got on the board.
Mm-hmm.
I think all of us would hate to walk away and it be in worse shape than
No doubt.
whenever
No
we
doubt.
got here, so, yeah. So.
It's funny you said that, Matt. It's something that's been heavy on my heart for the last probably 3 or 4 months, and continue to ask myself the question: am I leaving it better than I found it? And I think the answer to that is yes, absolutely. But also understand that there's always improvement. And when I'm working with my board, and one of the questions is, man, we're going to miss you. How are we going to replace you? You're going to replace me with somebody that's better than me.
Well, they've actually contacted me and.
No, but one of the things that I always tell our staff is every job opening is an opportunity to improve your district, and you have to look at it that way. And I love what you said
so it was hard for me to narrow down to one, so I kind of combined two together to create one. And that's, prepare students for their career
Mm-hmm.
and do that with 100% graduation.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna deviate and go take a rabbit trail, as I call it, is, when I was raising my kids, my mind was made up. Both my kids are going to school, they're going to college, that's the way it's gonna be. Well, guess what? One of my kids decided that wasn't gonna be the path.
Yeah.
But I learned along the way that, not all kids learn the same.
That's right.
And that path for a career is not one size fits all. Every kid, whether it's, military, whether it is, some, a skill set that they're doing, or whether it is college, doesn't matter. That's the path that is right for them as a career.
Yep.
And so how do I influence that? And that is by making sure that every kid has the opportunity to walk away with a high school diploma and have the education, be positioned for whatever that next step is for them. That's, to me, one of the things I love the most about our Links campus. Those kids do not have an easy road, but guess what? They're learning what they need to in order to make that next step. So to me, it's all about prepping the kids, making sure that they're learning what they need, they're ready to take that next step. And we do very well with our graduation rate, but 100% is my objective. About 15, 20 years ago, the word college ready was thrown around so much in education. College ready, gotta make sure everybody's college ready. And we quit using that term about 10 or 12 years ago. And again, I am a storyteller, and Krista knows Amy Hopkins, who works for, and
We just figured this out today.
yeah, we just
didn't know
figured,
it.
we just knew this. My brother-in-law and Krista's husband work in Mesquite Fire Department, and she knows my sister, who works for Kevin, kind of that small world. She's an educator, I'm superintendent. My brother makes more money than we do, and my brother never darkened the doors of a college. My brother's a farmer who owns a grain elevator, who now has a contract with Buc-ee's. If you walk in Buc-ee's and look for the deer corn, he grows it, bags it, and sells it to them. Yeah, and never even thought about wanting to go to college. What he wanted to do is he wanted to farm, and he does it well. And it's that concept, it's that thought. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, Kayla, let's hear from you.
I put to represent students and taxpayers and make decisions to improve academics, child safety, and to stay true to the culture of our community.
Culture of your community, I like that.
I do too.
And we talked about that a little in our intro. Both he did in Roy City and Sunnyvale. This place has a culture. It does. I first got to know Godly actually when we came here and played football against them. And tough, hard nosed, get after it. Good kids. They would absolutely put a helmet on you, but they'd also pick your offer you a hand, pick you up, and we'd get after it again. So that was the first, and then I got to know the district a little more through Rich. But I think it's that there is a little bit of that. Well, describe the culture. I can describe it from outside. Describe it from inside. Give me just a handful of words, because this is important. You kind of have to know that. What is that?
Class.
Class,
Kindness,
kindness,
Neighborly.
neighborly,
hardworking.
hard. See, that was the one. That's the one that resonated with me. Just watching your kids was hardworking. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Nice job.
that's good. All right, Dennis.
How fast? Over the time we've been here with me and Terry, we've seen a lot of culture changes. We've seen the dairy success, which meant the board was the dairy board.
Farmers, yeah.
And so I come in my convertible and somebody says, you wanna be on the board, and you'll have to get rid of that convertible. But, the foundation is to me, is where it's gotta be, the foundation. And I haven't always thought of it that way, so it's taken me some time. And some of it's just where I'm at in life, and where I'm at in life, experiences. I've always put myself in the teacher's classroom. What's that like? I've always wanted to know how the principals how they feel about their job. I asked the principal just recently, what do you think the biggest accomplishment that you've got right now that you don't have to worry about? And he said, we don't worry about bullying. We take care of bullying. And I thought, the way he said that made me so excited about that person. He's where he needs to be. I've also have more confidence in how our schools, our principals are working together to accomplish everything that they need to accomplish. When they get up, a lot of them are repeating each other in some ways, but they're on the same page.
Yeah.
So to me, that's how the team of 8 should be. And so that foundation, I believe my responsibility as a part of the team of 8, as a board member, is to support the team of 8. And support it whether I agree or whether I believe it, and I may just roll my eyes at a moment. But when I walk out that door, this is it. This is what we're doing. And I think that foundation is being a part of that. And I think it leads to other successes. I think that, but that part has to be solid.
You've used the word foundation a couple times. Tell me help me define foundation. What's that foundation piece?
Well, I think it's, you're not gonna sway.
Okay.
We have to be focused on these topics. There's several of them. Education, career ready, all those things. There's a bunch of things. But we have to our mission statement should be in agreement with everybody. This is where this school is going. It was, we've had different things that we've said. Some of it was, let's not worry about the A through F rating. Let's worry about what our kids are gonna get out of here. My kids came here, and so, golly, was a good school for my kids. They got their own successes. But I think that it starts with, we're confident, we're secure, we're focused, we have one thing in mind. And that has to happen with us. Because if not, it breaks down.
So you use the word foundation. And again, I was blessed to work with one board president in 16 years. Recruited me to come to Sunnyvale. You know him. In fact, I think y'all played golf together. Hadn't you? No, you haven't played golf yet. He'll take you to the DAC anytime. But 16 years, same board president, recruited me to come to Sunnyvale and all the way through. He says that a good school district, a good school system is like a tree. Okay? So the fruit, if we're talking about a good old-fashioned Texas pecan, okay, the product is that pecan itself, all right? That's the students. That's what that tree should produce. It should produce that fruit. That's the kids. Okay, the branches are the teachers. The admin's the trunk. What role are y'all? So give me some commonality of the roots. You use the word foundation. I use the word roots. First of all, you're not seen. And that's kind of a hard paradigm to get your mind wrapped around, is really as a board member, you're not as visible. Okay, that's the visible guy, right? And you expect him to be visible. But as a board member, you're not visible. But if you don't have good roots, you don't have a tree. The tree will die. And so he's always, and we've done board trainings together. And he'll say, the organization is the tree, and you better have good roots. So anyway, I love that you said foundation, because it kind of triggered that comparison.
Same
Yes,
example.
that same example. All right, Krista.
What you just said about the roots, I have to say something while I go get mine, because I have to read it, because that's too much. Is that the roots go out further than any other part of the tree,
Yes, they do.
and they're always seeking nutrients and things, and so that's, when you said that, it really, made me think about how our job is maybe reaching out even further than any other part of the tree for what our district needs. So,
That's a great example.
I wrote on my sticky, ensure each student receives the best education we can offer them by providing a safe environment and encouraging and supporting teachers and administration with appropriate policies.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that part about safe environment.
Mhm.
So important.
You know, when a parent drops their child at school, they want them to have a good day and they want them to learn, but the first hope, thought, prayer is that that student is safe, especially in the world that we are in today. And I know that as experienced superintendents, that is that's so become job one for us.
Keeps us up at night.
Really changed, I guess. Columbine changed a lot.
Yeah.
I was an assistant principal when Columbine occurred. So that's a good exercise. That's a good exercise. Thank you for putting some thought in it. So we're going to leave the chart paper. We're going to leave. We're going to leave those with you. But from time to time, I want you to refer back to what's my top goal. Who am I as a board member? Because that's good stuff.
Yep.
All right.
Good deal.
So, I want to talk a little bit about board superintendent communication. This one, and so anytime I do a team of 8, and I think I've done 14 team of 8 since I retired in July. Been on the road a little bit, seen different parts of Texas, but I do this slide, and you know the first thing. I kind of put the superintendent on the spot a little bit, so hopefully I'm not putting Dr. Deere on the spot here. But one of the things that we believe in is weekly updates. We think that weekly updates are important. What we have done in the past with weekly updates is it's an email to the board, and we just say, here's what's going on, here's some initiatives we're working on, a little bit of progress toward those initiatives. When we really get ambitious, then we might actually tie it back to the pillars. Here's some things you need to look forward to next week. You know, small town, hey, where's the basketball team playing, or the bands and contests, or just those kinds of things, that opportunities for you to be engaged are very important. Most of the board superintendent communications are one way. It's the superintendent communicating with the board members. Sometimes it is, though, the board member will reach out to the superintendent. One good practice that we believe in is if a board member asks the superintendent a question, when that superintendent responds to that question, he's going to respond, he or she is going to respond to all the board members, just to make sure that everyone stays on the same page. So Kevin and I have told you that we are doing searches. We did a superintendent search in Ponder. We're doing one in Iowa Park. When we went in and we met with the board, we told them, we said, first of all, we're experienced superintendents. We know how to work with boards. And so you're going to get a weekly communication from us. And they said, what? We said, yeah. Every Friday, we're going to communicate with y'all. Here's where we are in the search process. This is what happened. This is what you got to look forward to next week. And they said, well, thanks. And we said, you know, the one thing we don't want you to ever think is, well, I wonder how that search is going. We don't want that, so we're going to give you that information. And it's the same way with y'all, isn't it? You don't want to have to wonder how things went. You want that to be communicated. 3 types: emails. Emails are probably the weekly. Could be maybe something happened during the week that communicate. The text message. The text message might be, again, it needs to be a little bit more timely, and I sure can't wait till Friday. There was an ambulance at the middle school. Here's what's going on. Why do you need to know? Because I think Kayla said it. Because I'm going to have a parent reach out to me. When I have a parent reach out to me, well, there's, because by the way, if the ambulance shows up, 2 police cars and a fire truck are also going to come. And now, ding, 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 we got a problem. So you get a text from the superintendent that says, hey, had this go on, this is why they're there for a training exercise, whatever. And it really kind of lessens your stress load a little bit. The thing that we tell our board is if there is a group text, and often there's gonna be some sort of thread, make sure that you're not discussing school, board business on that, because you could be in violation of open meetings. The phone call is funny. I would make the phone call if they needed to know now. Maybe it's a sensitive subject, something that maybe it's personnel related, student discipline, whatever, but they needed to know, and I would call them. My board vice president, if I called her, she would go, oh no, what's up? Yeah, that was always, and so from time to time, I would just call them to say, hey, just checking in and keeping you off balance a little bit. But that's the phone call. Communications with staff and public, and I think we talked about this already. This one is important. We always wanted our staff to know what was going on in the district. Everything from sharing, hey, this is the board agenda, just giving you a heads up on that, to maybe here's some initiatives, there's some things that we're working on. And I'm telling you, the day that we presented the goals and priorities, they thought that was the best staff development we've ever had. There should be a designated district spokesperson. Normally that is going to be your superintendent. If the media comes, I know that Fort Worth is close. That would be Channel 5. They can be out here probably in 30 minutes. We are in Sunnyvale. We're about 20 miles from downtown, and they called on us pretty regularly. Calling us pretty regularly. So your superintendent should be the spokesperson. It might necessarily be that the board, they need a board perspective. If they do that, your board operating procedures would be that the board president would be that person. And unfortunately, that's something, I don't know if you've had to do, but it's when they put a camera in front of your face, then you would have that opportunity.
Okay.
So I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
As a board member, if I'm contacted by media, then I would defer that to
You would
the board president,
you would
superintendent.
yes, ma'am. And
Both, probably.
yeah, both. And then just notify them that, hey, I got contacted because,
Right.
and they may know you because of 20 plus years out here, and they have that contact. But you would contact, tell them you need to talk to Rich Deere, and then Matt, I don't remember your last name. Okay, McKittrick. And just direct them to contact
And then let
them.
them know, hey,
That's right.
you may be getting a call.
Yeah, hey, giving you a heads up that.
Right.
Consistent messaging.
Yep.
Consistent voice.
Yep. Some other things to remember, in closed session, we jokingly say closed session is like Vegas. What's said there stays there. And it's for a reason. Most of the time, the things that are discussed in closed session are confidential in nature. It could be personnel, it could be student discipline. Right now, one of the things that boards are having to deal with is security. You're given certain security updates, and when you get those security updates and they're given in closed session, the one thing that we kind of cautioned ours not to do is don't go give the classified information away, so to speak. We've got school marshals. We do not identify who the school marshals are. We tell the board in closed session, but we tell them that if you identify the school marshals, you're putting the school marshal at risk, and you're also putting a dent in the security of the campus. So again, just a reminder, I know you know that, but closed session, guard that information. Again, who talks for the board, who talks on behalf of the district. Disaster or crisis management is key. Disaster or crisis management is huge, and this is really across the community. If there was a situation that occurs, what we encourage you to do is have a consistent message, whatever that consistent message is. Why? So that one board member's not saying one thing and another board member's not saying another. The superintendent's saying something else. And so that it's just that It's that one message, this is what we know, this is what happened, this is what we know. And if you've got any questions, direct them back to Rich at that point. Anything to add on that?
No, I mean, that is extremely important. And one of the things that we've experienced in Roy City as a fast-growing district is a lot of social media, TikTok challenges and things of that nature. So just one prime example, about a year and a half, there was an Orbeez challenge. Y'all remember Orbeez challenge? And so there were about 4 students coming to the high school one day in pickup trucks, and they were in the back of the trucks, and they were shooting those little rubber pellets at each other because it was a game. They were videoing it and they were putting it on TikTok. Well, you can imagine what that looked like as you go into the high school with 2,600 kids coming in the morning in a parking lot. Students were coming and arriving to school. So immediately a student picked up the phone and called 911, and boom, you active shooter at Roy City High School. So can you imagine what happened next? Every law enforcement officer within 30 to 45 miles was in the parking lot at Roy City High School as parents were dropping off kids. So, damn it, crisis control and messaging was extremely important. So, as fast as we could get something out, but the most important thing on that was to make sure the board was communicated with first. And so, we put that message out to the board that says, hey, this is going out to our parents, this is going out to our community in 5 minutes. Read this. Because what happens if that happens, if we send that out to the community prior to the board, your phone will probably start ringing, your text message, what is going on at the high school? We wanted a consistent message when it comes to crisis communication.
And I will say, in a community similar to Sunnyvale, in a community similar to Godly, where everyone is networked and many are kin to each other, if there's not that one consistent message, by the time it is shared 3 or 4 times, then you've got 20 different messages out. You've got 20 different what happens out. And so I do think it's important that message is concise and it's consistent. Bond elections in the community. We know that there was a not successful bond election last May here. And I think that the first thing that happens when there's not a successful bond election is everyone wants to begin to speculate why. Again, we encourage the team of 8 to make sure that there is that consistent messaging, and then when you talk about the next bond, just the facts and the details, we encourage. In fact, I worked with one district that, again, small community, they actually had talking points that they kept on them. Whether it was ladies kept them in their purse or the guys kept them in their back pocket, because they knew they'd be at a ball game and someone would say, give me the details of what this thing's doing. And they would be able to go, well, we know that it's building a middle school. The middle school's gonna cost this much, and here are the details, just so that there was that consistent piece. Finally, the last one, public support of school district and leaders. Dennis said this, and he said it a lot better than what I could. When there is no board that has all 7-0 votes all the time, 100% of the time. There will be sometimes that there will be a dissenting vote. The thing that good teams of 8 do is they can dissent, and then when they leave the board meeting, they are on the same page. And that's, to me, I think that's what we're discussing there.
Okay, any questions about communication, those 2 slides that we talked about? Okay, this is my favorite part here. Let's get into storytelling. As we talk about being an advocate for Godly ISD along with public education across the state of Texas, we think it's important to be strong storytellers. Storytellers of the great things that are going on in Godly ISD. And so we encourage you just to take about 5 minutes and think past the last 18 months of 3 things that you are proud that has been accomplished. Our students accomplished it, our staff members accomplished it, or it's in your community-based accountability report, or it's even in your publication that you have in front of you that you produce every year. Think of 3 things that you're proud of. We're gonna leave them on your table, because we're gonna do an activity later, and we're gonna place them under student learning, student readiness, things of that nature.
Okay, so couple items for you. This is your annual publication that your communication department puts out. It's
Beautiful.
attractive, beautiful, well done. Recognize some of the components of it. So you got this, and then also we have run off your scorecard. And so you've got copies of your scorecard. And so use those and then safety and well-being, fiscal and operations, professional learning and effective staff, community and engagement, engage well-rounded students, student readiness, student learning and progress, okay? So take a few minutes and think about those 3.
Yeah, 3 things.
When you are finished, we want you to put those on the appropriate piece of chart paper above the line, okay? We're gonna go above the line with
Okay.
this exercise.
5 minutes.
So 3 different sticky notes.
3 different sticky notes.
3 different
Yes.
sticky notes.
Mhm.
You think so too?
All right, so, guys, I guess I'm struggling with this
No,
one.
it's okay.
Okay.
So, one of the things I'm proud of for in the past 18 months is getting CBAS in place. That means I'm putting a sticky on every one of these things. And so, what you've asked me doesn't work for me.
I think I would do community and engagement.
Yeah.
Because it is a, you know what I'm saying?
No, but that's my sticky.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because, but I go back
I
2
would.
years,
Yeah.
that was, you can ask any one of these guys, that was my
Yeah.
hot button. We have to do that.
Yeah.
So,
I think I would put that under community and engagement because it is a community-based accountability.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would put it there.
Thank you for asking that question. That was good. CBAS was one of
But
my.
that's it. Okay,
all right,
So, yeah,
sorry to be
it'd go under
not
community
problematic
engagement.
here.
Yeah. Mhm.
No.
And hopefully you'll see multiple sticky notes related to that.
cheated to go be on the Florida State team.
Just
For the what?
overachievers.
Say Florida State.
Oh
Yeah,
my
Florida
gosh.
State.
I got 14.
Oh my gosh.
Y'all could not be on that committee. Y'all would not be able to be on that committee.
Would you
Yeah,
have put
probably
Florida
get rid
State
of
in?
one.
No, because my daughter goes to Alabama.
Okay. I understand.
So, and I do think all
Wouldn't you think
season that Alabama's strength of schedule
Absolutely.
has not been taking, they haven't been taking that into consideration, nor the margin of winning.
Did I mention she's a graduate of A&M?
Yeah. And then my daughter, yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
So, but it's
every
kind of,
parent has one failure.
it's kind of hard to sit there and listen to him talk about
I think it was
the
Ryan's
four
place.
best teams.
I hate it.
And I understand what
Now.
you're trying to say.
The four
Now.
best teams now.
But,
Man,
but what's to
13 and
say
0.
that Florida State is not one of those four best
Yeah.
teams when it comes to defense and things that they've overcome?
You know what
So
their
I
strength of schedule is?
yeah, it's bad.
Yeah.
It's bad. I understand.
And
That's
Florida
true.
State.
I just-
So you're talking to a
undefeated.
Horned Frog fan, so.
And
That
they lost their
undefeated
quarterback,
season
too,
just,
so.
it's hard.
It
Not
is
to get in
interesting. I'm really glad I'm not on that board or committee or whatever.
All right, so can you go back and help me understand the things that we're proud of, why you are trying to bucketize them into the pillars?
Yep.
Because I think it goes, in my mind, it goes beyond the pillars.
Yep. We've done this activity a couple of times. Actually, you did this activity with my school board.
I did.
And so really what it does is allows us to really place them in what we believe in community-based accountability and where the pillar will fall. And so each one of those pillars, everything you're doing in your school district, successes fall in some area of this pillar. And so it's important as a board member to be advocates for each one of those pillars. And so being able to identify some of those successes and where they land is extremely important.
Yeah, and the reason I do this activity every time we go out. Now, there are some that have the community-based accountability model, like Sunnyvale, Roy City, Godly, and so we speak the same language. But there are some that have never been exposed to that, and so we may say academic achievement, quality staff, programs, and so we funding facilities operations, we do that. The reason we put those up there is because we want them to think, it gives them a little bit of a prompt for the holistic view of the district, if that makes sense. And then the other thing that we want is we encourage them to tell their story. There are many school districts, when we have this conversation with them, we'll say, okay, so who knows that you've got a comprehensive CTE center going in? And they'll go, well, we know it, and I guess our faculty knows it, and probably the parents. And we'll say, what about, and I'll say this, what about people my age? Whose kids have graduated from the school district, we're really no longer involved in the school district, how are you communicating with us? Communication directors, they do a great job sending out emails or that put things on the website, but and I hate to say this, and I don't want to be incredibly offensive, but my parents who are 80 plus years old, they're not going to a website and they sure don't get an email on anything. But they get that. They get that, and so they get that, and so we encourage them to tell their story, and so I think that's the reason we put it in that format.
Yeah. So who put the Grow Your Own program? Okay, it's awesome. I saw this in your report a couple of days ago. I'm just in awe because you guys are on the forefront of your growing your own. Okay, and it's important to continue to grow your own. So we have this same program in Roy City ISD. It's called the Rise Up program, and we partner with Teach Worthy, and we partner with IWU, Indiana Wesleyan University. So we are Capturing Kids' Hearts School District, and if you don't know this, Teach Worthy is a component of Capturing Kids' Hearts program. There's another component called Lead Worthy as well. It's the old leadership classes for secondary schools. And so I love this particular program, but I got a funny story about this program. Okay, so I've been in Roy City for 12 years. We've been a Capturing Kids' Hearts district for a number of years. We're a national showcase district for
for Capturing Kids Arts, and there's only 11 across the nation, and we're one of them, and it's about building relationships. Well, one of the things that we had our students of the Lead Worthy classes come and speak to our board about what they do on their campuses in building those relationships and also creating that in climate that they're so important. And so they're called Lead Worthy. My name is Kevin Worthy, okay? And so when this wonderful 8th grader was standing up there articulating this program called Lead Worthy, when that presentation was over, I had 2 board members look at me and go, "Did you name that after yourself?" We really like you, but why in the world would you name a program after yourself? And I said, whoa, wait a minute. This is Capturing Kids Hearts. I had nothing to do with that. And so every time I see the words Lead Worthy or Teach Worthy, I think of that particular school. Go ahead, Doug.
I'm sorry. I wanna just a couple minutes share out. Tell me something you're proud of.
I'll jump in there. I think we have invested heavily in student safety,
Okay,
in a lot of different ways.
okay,
Some to remain nameless.
all right, yeah,
But,
absolutely.
I mean, I think that's, we talk about education, and y'all touched on it a little bit earlier. We talk about education and, the kids getting to being college ready or career ready or, all the punch words that we have and all the acronyms that we have. And you said it earlier, like if there's a kid that didn't go home at the end of the day, I think, man, the whole system is a colossal failure. You
Yes,
know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah.
and things happen, but unfortunately, like that out there, but, I think that's, I don't even want to think about it.
The kids are gonna learn if they feel safe as well.
Right,
So
well, no, and
it's a
that's,
big-
it's creating that environment for the, for them to learn in. So,
Absolutely.
No question.
again, you can never do enough. You could spend millions of dollars every year in that area and not do enough. And then the other thing, I think, for me, in my, time on the board, is passing the BATRE,
Uh-huh.
really rolling that out. For years, we had, we were the top 3 or 4 in Region 11 as far as smallest class sizes. And that's something that we focused on, and as a board, really wanted to key on, is to have those small classes where kids can learn, and teachers aren't overwhelmed with just keeping up with a bunch of kids. Anyway, but at the same time too, we were the bottom 3 or 4 in Region 11 in pay, and so there was always that just chasm there. That,
Yeah.
so
Bless you.
I think, helping to kind of bridge that gap and really, and it's the community that kind of got, obviously that got behind us and supported that, for our teachers. But, safe students learn, happy, well-paid teachers teach,
That's right.
and it all kind of,
And you retain them.
right.
That's right. You
So,
retain them.
yeah.
Yeah, those are great, Matt.
Two
Those
guys.
are great.
Someone else?
Mine was the Wild, which is our about to be open CTE wing over there. Going kind of back to what Craig Stevenson said earlier about that it's not all college ready anymore, and we're gonna be able to offer maybe not right away culinary arts, but hopefully soon. But we've got kids that can leave with their cosmetology license or a phlebotomist license or a welding license, or like all kinds of things that they can do to where if college isn't for them, or maybe it's not for them right away, they can go out and be a contributing member to society and feel proud of themselves and ready for whatever their next step after high school is.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine how many lives are going to change in that building over there through our CTE program. So that's a huge one for me.
That's right.
Very, very
Yeah,
good.
perfect.
Very good.
Who else?
I'm gonna say successfully opening a new elementary. We haven't had a brand new elementary in
Long time.
Since 95.
like, yeah, a long, long time. And they're thriving and they're full, which
Yeah.
is the scary
Yeah.
part.
that. I thought, man, they're gonna run me out of my own town, you know, I gotta find somewhere to move, you know, and then a couple of years later, we're, you know, 3 years later, we're adding on to it, you know, and it's like, we didn't build it big enough, you know, I mean, it's,
It's
but,
beautiful.
yeah, so.
We did what we could at the time,
Yeah,
and now
for
we'll do
sure.
what we can do.
Yeah.
No question.
But
But
it's,
these guys navigated such a, especially since, 2020, just such a crazy construction environment. And, so a lot of times we leave meetings with, our stomachs are growling a little bit just from, what we have to deal with, but they just done such a great job of leading through all this.
Yeah.
Because it's growing community, it's tough.
Yeah,
They've done a great job.
I'm glad you said that, that's well said.
So we're gonna look forward for a few minutes, okay? We're gonna transition. Creating a vision for the future of GISD. How's your workplace changed the last 10, 20 years? What did your workplace look like? How's it changed?
Are you saying where we were?
Where you worked? Yeah.
I'm a firefighter, and we have bulletproof vests on the fire engine now, and that blows my mind.
Okay.
I wore them last shift.
That goes back to the safety aspect. Okay.
Technology.
Technology. Technology is absolutely, yeah, when you think about where we were 20 years ago compared to now, no question.
Restaurant business.
Well,
right?
social media is out of control. Used to be Yelp was like the biggest fear of conversation, because that normally wasn't a positive avenue. But it's, there's so much hate, there's so much jump on the bandwagon stuff, where people, you feel like they want something, it's not just listening, there's more to it.
Mm-hmm.
If you mess up, you're really gonna pay for it. And so it makes us better, it makes us more conscious, makes us more sensitive about things that we weren't sensitive about in the past. But it also kind of controls us, like, it takes away some of the heart of why we do things and things of that nature. We're doing it to protect ourselves from the outside.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I work in healthcare, so you can change that from 10 to 20 years to the last 4 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was about to say.
And that has obviously done a lot in education as well. I mean, gosh, we didn't sign up for COVID, but we got to deal with it, and I was so proud of our district being the first district open in the state of Texas in the fall of 2020. And as soon as we came back, we were talking about how do we get those dang masks off of our kids and teachers, and I was proud of us because we waited until we could get our teachers vaccinated, and then as soon as we could, we took those, we at least made it an option and not a mandatory thing again. So things around here have changed, and but in my job, I had to stay with it a lot longer, but that has changed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and even that, I remember we were talking a lot in that time period, and the calendar was just to open that early,
Mhm.
and then all this happened. Well, the more we talked, I remember coming to you guys and said, hey, we still want to open here, and you guys said, yeah, let's do it. And I remember you said something to me, you said, we're either going to show them how to do it, or how not, because you said we're going to end up on the news, either show them how to do it right, how to do it wrong.
And I said, let's do it right.
Exactly, you guys gave us a very
Clear direction.
clear direction that we would need to be doing it the right way.
And I remember talking to you through
Yeah,
that.
me too.
Yeah. I was in Dallas County, and that was a
Yeah.
whole different,
Yeah.
that was a whole different ordeal.
But I think it goes back too to tag on to what Rich was saying. It ties into safety and well-being too, because like Krista said, I wholeheartedly agree with, we didn't sign up for that,
Yeah.
but we all navigated it. And but at the end of the day, and I'll speak for myself, I didn't believe in masks. That's my personal belief. I didn't believe in any of the stuff, crowd immunity, whatever you want, and that's a whole rabbit hole to get down in there. personal beliefs were. But I wasn't making that decision based on me. I was making that decision based on thousands of kids and
Yep.
staff members, you know,
That's right.
and I think at the end of the day, man, it's a tough decision to sit there and say, is this the absolute right thing? I know my personal belief, but is it the absolute right thing to come back this quick? And what if we're wrong? Right? Because and again, that goes back to one kid gets deathly ill, one of our staff members gets deathly ill. It was a wrong decision, right?
Mhm.
So, and that was tough. I mean, it was
You know,
sleepless nights for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
All this gray
yeah,
hair back
yeah,
there.
no question.
I think what all that, the gravity of the decisions and the discussions that take place in a team of 8 now versus 10 to 20 years ago
Completely ramped
are,
up.
yeah,
Yeah, completely.
the gravity is much, there's a lot more to take into account. I wasn't on the board 10 or 20 years ago, but I just firmly believe that on all levels of all organizations, the stakes are higher now.
So let me ask the second question. What future do you want for your children, the children of GISD? All right, I think Kayla's got the youngest children. Talk to me about their future. What future do you want for your kids? I'm gonna put you on the spot.
For me personally, as a mom, and I put it over there, I'm excited that we have an early literacy coordinator because that's something that I had to really fight for my son in this district. And I know as a state, reading is, kids are struggling to read. I don't know what the magic bullet answer is there, but reading for me is so important. I actually host the Godly Book Club in town, so I love to read. Reading is super important to me. And I actually struggled to learn to read as a kid too, and had a really good second grade teacher that stayed with me after school and helped tutor me to learn how to read, and now I'm an avid reader. So for my son who struggles to learn how to read, knowing that that doesn't mean that he's not going to love to read in the future and that reading might be a really big part of his life, but he just struggles to learn that skill. And as Craig said earlier, all kids learn differently.
Yeah.
And not every kid is going to fit into the same hole. And so just figuring out what that looks like and how to help those kids that are struggling. But honestly, for me, I think reading is one of the most fundamental,
It is.
important things.
It is.
And we can't allow technology to help us lose sight of that, because I know I've heard a lot of people say that with technology, reading isn't as important because like STAR tests, they can read to the students. But to me, that's such a crutch that I would hate to see us fall into that trap of allowing technology to fill in for those fundamental skills that students really need.
And it's also, there's also the ability to read, but also comprehend what
Right.
you read, which is that next level. That's a good point. Someone else? What future do you want for your kids or for kids of this district? Yeah. Here's the reason we ask this question, because the next thing we're about to talk about is about to talk about, so where do you see the district going? Some specifics. So I think we have to ask this question, because this question and the next one, what skills do they need, really drive a lot of that, don't they? If it's literacy, that's high level, right? Okay, what else?
So I'm gonna come back to the number one goal that I mentioned a minute
Okay.
ago. I see the future being very similar to today. Now, will it, in the way I characterized it, having every student being prepared for whatever the next step is.
Sure.
So now, what does that next step look like 10 years from now? Is technology the same? Not likely. It wasn't 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, could we have said it's going to look like this? No. But the goal, the future that we wanted is still the same, that we want them to have experiences and skills that prepare them to, number one, make the right decision for them so that they are ready, whatever the next step is. I don't care what it is.
Perfect segue.
Tell me what those skills are.
Yeah.
What are those skills what skills?
Problem solving.
Problem solving.
Read.
All right, because if you supervise young people, we know that. Okay, you, if you're in the food service business, my guess is you've gotta have some people that can solve some problems.
Well, I mean, people, regardless of what the business is,
Mhm.
could be church, could be school, I mean, people are people. And so, we gotta get on the same page, and I think that, you know, in our business, we have to serve great food and have great, atmosphere and
Customer relations.
and all that
Yeah.
is part of just being in business.
Yeah.
And so you pass that on, but there's it's not mechanical, it's gotta become more personal, it's gotta become, connecting with those
Yes.
guests, like, okay, you're coming in dressed like this, you must have been somewhere nice, you know, and,
Yeah.
those kind of things, so you're identifying with what you have, the interaction of what you're dealing with at that particular moment, and then it happens right with no notice, boom.
Yeah.
Soft skills.
Skills, what else? What other skills?
Communication was
Communication.
what I was gonna say, which falls into that.
Yeah.
Because I see that, I mean, I forgot to say earlier, I do have two children, a 23-year-old that graduated from A&M, just this last night, and a senior. And I noticed that with my children, they have to have communication, and my son can talk to that piece of glass. He can talk to anyone, but there's so many that can't. I mean, I see my daughter, which is the polar opposite. She's very reserved. She doesn't have that where she'll walk up and just talk to somebody. If I tell her to order her food, she usually looks at me. So those are critical. I mean, communication is so critical because, I mean, my son has now gotten a job, and it's because he knows how to talk. He knows how to BS, as they say. I mean, he can do it, and he has that communication factor, but I do worry about my daughter because I'm like, they're just so glued to those phones and glued to social media that communication, grammar, writing, so much of that is lost.
See, of course, I live with an English teacher, and hers is, you know, hers is the written communication, and how over the course of the last half of her career, that's gone away because students think that the way they communicate here is formal communication in writing. And so the number of times that I hear her sitting at her desk grading, and she goes, "What in the," you know, just, you know, that is so true. Other skills. What other skills do you feel like are important for when the kids enter their future, whatever that future is? What skills do they need? One more. Rich.
Integrity.
Integrity.
Because it covers a lot of different things, you know, I talked to my son a lot about, if you're doing the job and your name's on it, you need to do it right. Because he wants to do just enough so he can get back to Xbox, basically, that's all he wants to do. But, you know, doing things for the right reason, and being kind to people and listening,
Yeah.
leadership.
Yeah.
Leadership.
Leadership.
Yeah.
Leadership. All right. All right, so get your Post-its out again. I want you to get your Post-its out. Now, you're gonna get 4 Post-its this time. All right, you gonna lead them through it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're gonna take 4 Post-its, and we're gonna write 4 items you believe the team of 8 should address within the next 3 years. Think big picture. So we talked about those skills. We talked about some of those future-ready skills that our students need as they go out into the future. And again, that future could be anything of their choosing. So it's very important as we think about big picture, what are those 4 different Post-its, write 4 items you believe the team of 8 should address within the next 3 years.
All right, before you get rolling, let me give you one thing to think about. So we did CBAS in Sunnyvale a long time. We introduced this to the board way back in 2012, community-based accountability. So far back that I don't even think we called it community-based accountability then. Yeah, we did. But, so we said, when we get to the point that we quit defining ourselves according to standardized tests, the state standards, we can truly change education in Sunnyvale. Do you want the state standard, this is the minimum, or do you want a standard that we will define? And they said, we want that standard. So we came up with our own report out, something similar to this. Ours was numerical. But in our numerical report, the first time we went through the rendition, we evaluated ourselves very low in STEM education across the district, very low in STEM, and we were it's a medical community, it really is. So the board said, we have to do something about that, and they funded STEM positions, standalone STEM positions. Now what we are producing is, every year, we will have 2 or 3 kids that will leave our system and go to A&M to enter the engineering field because of that commitment to STEM ed. So here's what I'd like for you to do. Look at this document. Your own experience, this document, maybe the community report, to say, hey, here's where we are. This is the data. This is where we are. Where do we think that, as a board, where do we think we need to go, okay? So, little added instruction. I promise, we are close to the
Yep,
end.
absolutely.
Yes. And then, when you get those, we'd like for you to put those below the line on the appropriate chart, okay? Yes, sir.
just gonna go around the table, and we're gonna do one of your four. I just want you to pick one to talk about, and we'll start over here. Oh, no, I know which one you're gonna pick, because it's the one I'm talking to you
Yeah.
about.
I picked student and staff mental well-being.
And I walked over to her and I said, I'm so glad you put the word staff behind it, because it's so important. And we'll continue to focus on the staff. And I think a lot has happened since 2020 that has caused that really to make sure that the staff is taken care of. You know, one of the programs that we created in Roy City I was talking to her about is a program called LifeWorks. We partner with a group called LifeWorks, which allows our staff to have one-on-one counseling with an individual if there is a need to. And so really, really important. I think that's why you're seeing grow your own programs popping up, because we are losing people out of profession for that main reason right there. So I'm glad you said that. So that's definitely a goal for the next 3 years that you continue to work on and make sure that we're trying to accommodate the staff.
Well, I mean, we were at a thing in Georgetown, I believe, or some the Hopkins thing. And one of the things they said was, they gave an outlook of where we're gonna be 35 years from now. Not 3, but, and so it was kind of a doom and gloom of people, you know, not just hiring people, but good quality people. And so I think that we're gonna be dealing with staffing. I mean, I don't know if there's ever gonna be an end to it. So, one of the issues with that is sometimes we might just bend down a little bit below the standard level and bring someone on to fill a need. And, we certainly gotta be careful with that, which supports what the Grow Your Own program is.
That's right.
I don't think we'll ever, I don't know if we'll ever get away from that as a topic. I mean, I have security, and security is just, it seems to be being more challenged. You know, we're putting glazed windows in, and what's, you know, what's gonna be the future of that? I think security and that, I think, are 2 hot topics that we'll always have to.
Absolutely. And there's a balance there too. You know, the security is the #1 priority in Roy City. We make sure that we're doing everything we can, but we also don't want to take away from the instructional environment with too much security. And so there's a fine balance there too, but you can't ever have enough. Kayla, what was one of your 4?
Kind of what Chris has said, to solve and address bullying. I've just heard too many horror stories lately, and one that hit really close to home. And then to take every case seriously in
Absolutely.
that, you know, to that child, that bullying can be the end of the world, and it can seem like the end of the world in that moment, even if, you know, parents or administrators may not think it's that big of a deal. It could be that big of a deal to that student.
Absolutely.
So really taking those seriously.
Absolutely. That's a good one.
Teacher pay, we know things cost more
Absolutely.
overall,
Inflation.
and we have to keep the teacher pay in order to keep the teacher retention. We're not that far that, you know, who knows, a Burleson, a Fort Worth might be paying more, and, I mean, gotta keep the lights on.
Absolutely.
So, but we wanna keep those, I'm glad we have as one of our, objectives is to keep life-changing teachers in every classroom.
Yeah.
So, one avenue of that is pay.
I love how you described that. So that's one of your board goals, objectives. I love that. Absolutely.
You know, I think we as a board, and obviously there's community members involved, and certainly Rich and his staff, that we've created this place that is this awesome place that people want to move to and raise their kids in. And it's not perfect, and you guys have obviously been involved in district, you know, fast growth districts like that as well. So that being said, there's a lot of good things that are going on. Some bad, some things we need to address, and some things we need to change. And certainly people, you know, people are, it's like with our last bond, you know, people are really quick to point out what's wrong without providing solutions, you know, and at the end of constantly addressing growth, staying ahead of the curve, and then, or trying to stay ahead of the curve. And then, but staying true to our roots, you know, y'all were talking about the tree earlier, so.
Love that.
The top of the tree, everybody sees these big, beautiful buildings and all this stuff, but there's a lot of stuff under the ground going on that's really important, and that's happened in the past, and
No
it's,
doubt.
you know, it's kind of got us to where we're
No doubt.
today, so.
And those roots are gonna protect those core values,
Yeah.
and that's important, especially for Godly ISD and the city of Godly.
Yeah.
Rich?
My two big ones were exactly what they just said, like Matt just said, keeping, as we grow, being proactive in addressing the growth, but as we grow, keep the small town mentality and feel,
right.
and, you know, stay true to our roots. But another one was teacher pay as well, but through, we talked a lot about, you know, can we partner more with businesses, and do kind of what, you know, Justin's done over, at Forney,
Right.
with our CTE program. Can we bring in businesses, and then our students get to, and those businesses get to, you know, they're kind of ad hoc professors now, you know, they're helping teach our kids. And then we can use maybe some of that savings to pay the teachers that we do have more, because it's harder and harder to keep good, life-changing teachers.
Yeah.
And those kids are learning real world,
Yep.
you know, getting real
Relevant,
world
yeah.
experience.
Yep.
District of Innovation, use that, lean on that, because I mean, you can do some things with CTE, that's what Justin and I are doing at, you know, Forney and Roy City. We're bringing outside business people in
Yep.
to teach some of those courses, so absolutely. That's a game changer, guys. I mean, I keep staring at it, that's a game changer. And so, you're gonna be so happy when you see kids learning in those spaces and being future ready. It's a game changer.
Well, since they stole
Yeah.
what I was
I
gonna
should have started
say.
on the side.
Yeah, you should start on this side, but, I was originally gonna say staying on top of the growth, but I'm gonna change mine now to, our offerings, offering our students more in the way of CTE in the upper grades and in the lower grades, integrating more leadership, capabilities, and bringing kids into learning more about leadership and being leaders.
Love it, absolutely. Last but definitely not least.
So, yeah, I'm kind of going to be touching on, I'll just go through all four of mine, because I've kind of had some of everybody's, but my number one was teacher pay. I'm very passionate about that, have been for quite some time. We've got to do something there for sure, so we can maintain our teachers. Touched on the bond and our current campus congestion that we are going to need to try to stay ahead of, and maintain that, you know, staying ahead of the growth. I said CCMR, just continuing, we're really heading in a good path right now. We've gotten 2 new counselors at our high school, which are paving the way of what we've been wanting for quite some time.
Yeah.
So they're doing a fantastic job with that. The only other thing I said, and it's kind of what Matt talked about, just our tradition and culture, that's very, very important to me, because I have been here for 44 years. Maintaining that and having that out there, having our story out there, you know, just, we have a lot of traditions in this town. There's a lot that are unknown to a whole lot of the people that live here now, because there is so much new growth. So keeping our story out in the forefront, teaching people what it is to be a Godly Wildcat and to live in Godly, and that goes outside of our school. Our school is a huge, you know, proponent of that, but I mean, just in our community, there's so many things that are traditional, and you know, just like we said at the very beginning, our culture, just keeping that.
I love it.
Yeah.
You guys are great. Doug?
Ready? Okay, next slide. So you have some dots in front of you. All right, what we want you to do is we want you to go around the room, and you're going to select 4 that you feel like are the 4 most important. So you'll put a dot next to those 4. So you've got 4 dots you can use. And of course, the goals, the items to address are below the line. All right, so go around, read them all. I tried to consolidate some that were of like, you know, there's 5 that are related to teacher retention and recruitment. So go around, read, and then you got 4 votes each. Okay, take a few minutes to do that.
So does the color not matter? We're just using
Color
any
doesn't
dot?
matter.
Okay.
Yep. red dots, soft skill, or elementary reading and math?
Mine was all of those.
Yours was
You
all-
can't have three there. It's gotta be
All of it, all of
Okay.
it.
Student readiness. I'm not sure who the other red dot was.
All right, let's kind of review our work. All right, so,
Six,
yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
six for safety and, safe and secure environment, okay? I think that's definitely a strong 3-year goal, making sure that we're continuing to strengthen safety and security. The next one, is that teacher retention and
Yeah.
pay? 7 for that.
Yeah, teacher retention and recruitment. I've done this exercise 5 or 6 times, I guess, this fall semester. And this one is every school district. Every school district, it's front and center. The culture, maintaining the godly culture. As you grow, growth is going to happen. You can see all of the lots that are stubbed out. It's going to happen, but maintaining what makes this school district and this town unique. And then on this side of the room, 5 responses, improving elementary reading and math. Improving elementary reading and math. So those are the top ones. So the idea is you now have 4 goals.
Yeah.
And I think that, I think Craig said it, you've got 4 goals. And so now you've identified as a board what you are working toward. And so what will the progress monitor be? Well, how will that work? What will that look like? How can you measure? And then again, we encourage you to report that out. So,
Absolutely.
all right.
Yeah, and so Rich, like, we're gonna leave these with you, and so what I encourage you or your staff to do is to put this down in a doc. That way you have written communication back to the board based on what those goals are, but just based on what's important to all the board members. There might be something that you wanna address later down the road that maybe didn't get as many votes, but you have record of that.
So I'll take this and work with the administrative team to come back to you, because your goals should be my goals.
That's
So then
exactly.
we'll bring this back and that evaluation and all
Yeah.
that as well.
And then how are your directors, how are your campus principals working toward
Yeah.
a safe and secure environment? What I love is you see the numbers. 6, 7, 6, 5. Those 4. There's definitely a strong majority of all of you believe that this is the path forward for us. We've enjoyed being with you on a Sunday.
Absolutely.
We have. If there's anything that we can do, this is my email. This is actually our business email. It's dwilliams.impacted@gmail.com. My wife, being my wife, says that's impacted. I don't know why you did that, but I didn't let her check first.
First thing I thought.
What?
Me too.
First thing I
Yeah,
thought.
that was my wife being,
It's like,
she said, no, that's impacted. So, and then Kevin's is a lot more simple. He's got to get a business email as well. So anyway, it's a pleasure to have been with y'all. If there's anything we can do to help, we would love to. Rich, we'll turn it back over to you and Matt.
No, I
So-
appreciate you guys coming out. This was really good. And I agree, I like to see the high numbers everywhere, so
Yes, sir.
feels like we're aligned.
Yes,
So
sir.
we should be- We'll get together with the administrative team and bring it back to you guys.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
And I made a note, your 23 bond was 863 million.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
you're growing 1,100 a year. What was in that $863 million bond?
Brand new high school number 2.
How much was that proposed?
It's over 600,000 square feet, so it's approximately about 300 million.
300 million.
Yeah.
So half the,
Yeah, so a little bit over
So you're
and
building,
how many students would
20,
be
2750.
in
At
that
build
high
out?
school?
so you're building that,
Building
We're building it out. So yeah, we'll start with 9th and 10th graders starting in 27, and then we'll grow it out. But Roy City High School right now is approaching 3,000 students, and it's built for 2,500 right now, about 2,650. And so it's approaching 3,000. By the time that high school is built, we'll have over 4,000 students at Roy City trustee replaced Denton High School. And we went and toured Denton High School, and we just loved it. We just loved it. We took a lot from that and brought it back to our new high school. All in, they built that high school for $175 million. So we are building the exact same square footage 4 years later, and we're paying 300. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating. We do prototypes at the elementaries, and so we opened an elementary up in 2022, and we're opening the next one up in 24, and opening another one up in 25.
So you're
And
using the same floor plan
It's the
for
same floor plan.
those?
And the last one we just bid is 10 to 12 million more than what we bid when we built the first one for.
So back to the question, you said
Yeah.
300 of the 8 was the high school,
Yeah.
what was the remainder?
So we had 3 more elementaries, okay? We have middle school number 3, transportation center, distribution center, early childhood center, central office, admin office as well. And then the Prop 2 had athletics. Oh, I'm sorry, the other part was a continue to add on to Roy City High School with fine arts and continue to add on to the athletic facilities. And then Prop 2 was expand our stadium. And so 863 million with a number of different projects.
Was all Prop 1 and 2?
Prop A and 2, Prop A and B, I'm sorry,
Okay.
A and B. So,
So what will
B-
you do with your current high school?
we're gonna have 2. We'll have 2.
Okay.
It's the second high school. At build out, we'll have 4. And so we've already bought high school number 3 and 4 land, high school number 4. I know, it's incredible.
How quickly do they think you'll get to that fourth? What's your demographics saying?
3, high school number 3 should be built and opened up in 2034, and then 2042 is high school number 4. Yeah.
All in little old Roy City.
Roy City. Yeah.
Yep. One of my
It's not
first
little.
coaching jobs, we played Roy City. I was at Leonard.
Yeah.
Leonard is a 2A.
Yeah,
Now they're a 3A.
when I was coaching in Gunner, we were 2A, and we were playing Roy City, and they were a small 3A.
Yep.
Now we're 6A. And we'll have 2 6A high schools, so yeah, a lot of growth.
All right.
Yeah, thank y'all for coming
Great
out.
training.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, look forward to.
Thanks, guys.
And now let's turn the board over to the football game.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
So just to put your mind at ease, it's 21-6 San Francisco.
There we go.
Perfect.
That's what we want.
I motion to adjourn.
21-6.
I'll second.
A motion and a second to adjourn. If there are no objections, the board will stand adjourned at 5:19 p.m.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Thank you, Michelle, appreciate it.
Thanks for your service.